actually worked. I think I did it after doing this 1,500 times. I think I got it all figured out. All right. So my name is Otis James, folks. I'm a full-time real estate investor out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm a licensed real estate broker in California and Georgia. I'm a former mortgage broker. I still do lending, but only asset-based lending, hard money lending. I'm the founder of the 4 Data Points Academy, which is a real estate training platform that demystifies complicated real estate investment strategies for the average person. And there's unlimited support because I'm very confident that I can turn people into real estate investors sooner rather than later. I spent the better part of 20 years in the multifamily commercial industry, overseeing just under $650 million in multifamily commercial assets. I'm licensed in insurance. No, I'm not in the insurance business, nor do I want to be, but I use it as a leveraging tool. And so I can speak intelligently about it. I got licensed in it. I'm what you consider a long-term hold investor. I invest all over the country. I'm buying and selling properties. Um, I hesitate because it's, it was a rough year last year. So some of them properties I don't have no more. But I consult on development projects. Also, I've consulted on development projects, domestic and abroad. And, the basics when it comes to real estate investing falls into 4 questions. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? And that is the foundation, hence the 4 Data Points Academy. I currently mentor 350 people. Some folks are just getting off the ground, and we have some real estate family that. Sorry, Clubhouse. There was somebody was calling me. It was James. He knows I'm doing a room right now. Shout out to James Lewis. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna get on him. I'm not gonna get on him because this is recorded. So Tavares, why don't you text him and let him know that I'm right where I said I would be at this time.
Got you. All right.
You could go ahead and share the room with James Phillip Lewis. We're not gonna roast today. I forgot where I was in my intro, but it's all things real estate all the time. I was 3 years old going to real estate meetings with my father, and we didn't have like babysitters. Like that wasn't a thing back then. You went to work, and because my father was self-employed. He was a real estate broker since the early 70s, and still is. He won't admit it. He's trying to retire, but he's still a real estate broker. We used to go and he used to take me to when he went to these real estate meetings. And I don't know about Black folks from the projects, man. They can talk a long time. So my parents grew up in Hunters Point projects. Then Dad went to the military, and mom was hood rich though. She was she was with the Hasididi people, like right outside of the project. So they moved to San Jose back in the 70s, and I was born in San Jose. And I used to go with pops, and back then, like that's back when 30 years old used to be old. Like if somebody was 30. They used to be old in their 30s. That's what we used to call like all the sitcoms. You remember sidebar, you remember Archie Bunker, All in the Family, Tavares?
Oh yeah.
He was 45. He was 3 years younger than I am in that on that show.
Oh, he looked old as hell.
He looked very, 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 very old.
All that pork. That's what that
I don't think it was pork, but all right. So today we're going to get into funding real estate projects. There's a bunch of different ways to do that. And sometimes we get into the creative stuff. And disclaimer, hold on, let me get some background music. Hold on, let me see if I can get some. All right, let's get it now. We get into the creative stuff, but when you're teaching people how to invest in real estate, a lot of what you guys see out there is clickbait, right? So, you're scrolling on Instagram, and then you see a post that says, buy houses for $0, or fund a real estate deal using other people's money, or all of these things that give you the impression that you can get into this game for virtually next to nothing. But there's multiple phases to this, right? There's learning it, which I think everybody should do, right? Pay for your real estate education. I don't care whether it's a course. I don't care. I give a lot of free stuff away, for folks that financially aren't in a position to be able to, get mentorship or any of that stuff. So I give some free stuff away every once in a while. I'll do a free workshop. But make sure you pay for your education. Then the next phase is getting active, the practical application of the education, right? So you're getting out there, you know how to invest. Maybe you do a couple flips, and then once you get good at it, then you scale up, maybe to another asset class, like getting into apartment buildings and things like that. And then the last phase is having a real estate investing business, right? Something that you can step away from and basically just delegate everything. But in order to do that, you got to be well versed in all of the processes and all of these things, along the way. And it's not always easy. I mean, there's still some things, that I struggle with. There's still some, mistakes that I've made, that if I had to go back and do it again, maybe I would have reallocated funds, elsewhere. I've been in situations where, I helped people financially too much to my own detriment, created opportunities for people, a little more than I should, and I had to pay for it significantly financially. So there's a lot of levels to you just being in this game, right? So when we start talking about, hey, I'll teach you how to buy a property and pay out of your exit strategy, which is all they mean when they say you can buy a house for $500, or I'll teach you how to buy a house for $1 or $20 or $10. It's all the same. It's just paying out of your exit strategy. But I also got to let people know that you can't build a business model around that the way that you think, right? If an opportunity presents itself, I can acquire real estate and not have to pay for it up front. But if you have a real estate investing business and you want that to be your business model, you still have to be well capitalized in the marketing, because you have to be able to have conversations with people to even get the opportunity in the first place. And a lot of people don't realize that. So when I founded, 4 Data Points Academy, it was a realistic approach to real estate investing. And, I decided, look, I'm just going to teach people everything, and then they can decide what strategy they want to use, at a particular time. All right. If you guys can hear me on, oh, yep. Okay. All right. You can hear me now. All right. Good. All right. So for those that are just coming in, so we're live streaming. This microphone is right in my face. We're live streaming on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. And today we're going to talk about funding your real estate project. Normally I have a format, but I want to go over the concepts, but I want to be able to answer questions too, because the goal is to make sure that people understand how to actually do it. Right now, James, what's going on, man? Tell everybody who you are and where you're from before we jump into this, and then we'll do kind of intros as we go. James Lewis, you with us?
Nope.
Nope, he's not. Shout out to James for jumping in on Clubhouse and putting his phone down and using the bathroom. That's all right. We're gonna get back. Tavares, tell everybody who you are, where you're from.
What's up, everyone? I am Tavares Allen Garrett. I'm from the Bay Area, founder of The Body Synthesis. I'm a health and transformation educator. I hold multiple certifications from the National Academy of Sports Medicine. Known Otis and James over 38 plus years. Spent about 10 and a half years in the multifamily industry. Made it up to being a business manager. I've leased everything from residential to high-rise luxury products. And I currently am the manager of student relations here at 4 Data Points Academy. So if you all have any questions, please let me know. I am also the CEO, the chief energy officer here at 4 Data Points Academy. So if y'all got low vibration and you need to, pump up that frequency, I'm your guy. Okay, holla at me. Let's get it, y'all.
He said CEO. I was like, wait a minute, we're not structured as this is an LLC. It's an LLC. We ain't no CEO or president.
Chief energy officer, y'all. Let's get it.
It's funny though. I'll be on Instagram and TikTok, and I'll be saying everybody be using that title, CEO of. I'm like, I don't think you know what a CEO is actually. It's always black folks too, man. My people, come on, yo. We gotta do better.
You said that.
I am the CEO. No, you self-employed. That's what that is.
Real quick, what's up to everybody in the audience? We see y'all. Y'all look great. Please set your stage. Let's get it.
I need to find out how to put my phone on Do Not Disturb too. Actually, you know what? Maybe I can put her on.
Just ask Siri. Just ask her.
I don't know. Nah, she got an attitude with me. She caught me talking to Alexa at 2 a.m, and she was like, well, why don't you ask Alexa? The last time I asked Siri to do something, so it's off limits. All right, folks. So let's jump in. For the folks on Clubhouse, if you come up on stage, let's just keep it professional. Let's no cussing. Every time, I cuss like a sailor when nobody's looking, but anytime we get on a social platform or we're speaking where other people can hear us, let's make sure that we keep it professional. I'm not going to be the profanity police, but branding is very, very important to me. And, a lot of the opportunities that come my way are because of my way of being, who I am, and because of how I approach business. So let's just keep the profanity non-existent. I know some of y'all from the hood. It's all good, but we're gonna have to check it. We're gonna have to check it at the door. That being said, we got people up here. We got Entrepreneur, who's in our real estate family, James, who is a part of the operation side of the 4 Data Points Academy. Tavares, Tavares will probably be reaching out to some of you guys in our real estate family just to check up on you. And music is bad.
Absolutely, I will be.
Yeah, just checking on you and just kind of seeing, where you're at, if you need any more support. Rose, Credit Goddess, she is very good when it comes to managing debt. On the credit side of real estate investing is a whole world in and of itself, and she's very good about educating people in that process and educating people to be responsible. And she also doesn't use all the clickbait stuff. You're not going to see her posting Instagram posts at 11:50 p.m. in some Timberlands and a hoodie talking about if you just go to Navy Federal with an LLC. Oh man, if I see one more scammer, man, I'm gonna lose it.
I'm dead.
We have Dahlia also up here, who's also in our real estate family, and we got Gregory, who's also in our real estate family. Some of the folks that you'll see coming in and out of the room with the is that my kid? Is that my daughter? Hold on, is this my daughter? Hold on.
Yeah, that's Michaela. What's up, Michaela?
Well, it's my daughter over there serving her country. Petty officer, first class, Michaela Davies. Yeah, she's my daughter, and yes, we have different last names, but that's only going to be for her. That's because I didn't do the paperwork. I didn't do the paperwork. I was supposed to do it a couple of years ago. But I got you.
No, you didn't. You did not do the paperwork. I know you didn't do the paperwork.
I will take care.
My uniform says you didn't do the paperwork.
I will take care of it as soon as you come back. I promise. I'm just waiting for you to get out. That being said, go ahead, sis. Go ahead. Did I call you sis? Go ahead. I'm trying not to call you baby girl.
I'm gonna hold you to that, and I got 4 witnesses in here that heard you say that. So I'm gonna hold you to it.
All right. You got me. That being said, folks, let's jump into it. So I'm gonna turn this music down in the background, and we're gonna talk about first the type of lending that we use for real estate investing. It's called hard money. And hard money is kind of the nickname. Karen, I tried to bring you up, by the way, but I don't know what. You may have to go out and come back in. Hard money got that nickname because it's significantly higher interest than conventional lenders, and it was hard to make them payments, so they called it hard money back in the day. And back when I was a mortgage broker for conventional mortgages, I didn't really understand why people would use hard money. And because I wasn't really an active real estate investor, I owned, 4 or 5 properties back then, and I wasn't a good investor. I was over leveraged. I was just owning properties because it was so easy to get. This is over 20 years ago, folks. And the reason we use asset-based lending or hard money is because asset-based lenders or hard money lenders will finance you a percentage of what the property is going to be worth when you're done with it, as opposed to a conventional lender that will finance a percentage of what you're buying the property for or what the property is worth at the time. So hard money, asset-based lending is more expensive, but there's a reason that we use it. Another reason is the documentation requirements are easier for folks that are in our situation, right? If you look at my tax returns, it's going well, let me not talk about my tax returns. Shout out to the people at child support court. Shout out to the people. Hey, shout out to Donald Trump for saying, look, if you got your man or not your man or your baby's father on child support, you can't collect them. You can't claim them on your taxes. That was a cold one, right? Women were livid. Oh, I'm not gonna touch that topic, but
all right.
But meeting the documentation requirements on a conventional loan, they're typically going to ask you for, okay, let me see, 30 days pay stubs, right? 2 pay stubs. Let me see 2 months bank statements. Let me see your W-2s. Let me see a letter of explanation for any inconsistencies on your credit report. Let me calculate your debt to income ratio. Just all of these things that for entrepreneurs, business owners, people that are self-employed, we want to reduce our tax liability, but the double-edged sword is it's harder to get financing. Asset-based lending, i.e. hard money, is they don't look at your personal financials the way conventional lenders do, right? They look at the asset itself. So they qualify you primarily on the income that it generates, depending on the mortgage product, or the equity in the property. Now, you still got to have somewhat of a credit score. But I know asset-based lenders that will lend, down to a 500 credit score. You just got to have a bigger down payment. All right. So how do we fund, a typical deal? So if we go asset-based lending, if we go to hard money, it's 9:06. Y'all be able to. I can do this in an hour. I'll probably be able to do this in 30 minutes. Asset-based lending, hard money lending, they typically are looking for documentation in three categories. They want to know three different areas about what it is you're doing. Area number one, they want to know about you. Area number two, they want to know about your entity that you're using. And area number three, they want to know about the asset itself. And then there's some one-offs. So what happens when you find a real estate investment, the first thing you always want to do is run the 4 data points, because they're going to run them. So you're going to want to run the 4 data points. And the 4 data points are: what does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when I'm done? How much income can it generate? And I'm sorry, folks. I'm
What's up?
sorry. I'm
You good?
sorry. I just know, because I'm looking. I don't, so you guys got to understand. I talk about this stuff all the time. Like, real estate is my entire life. Ever since I've been exposed to this stuff since I was a toddler, right? And so for me, I'll listen to myself talk, and then I'm cracking jokes in my mind while I'm talking that have nothing to do with what I'm talking about. Because I'm looking, if you see me on YouTube, I first of all, I just think the internet is just super corny. It's just gotten corny, and I don't like it. And I don't like Instagram, and I don't like TikTok or any of that stuff, because it's a window into the decline of Western civilization. Like, it's all, if you want to catch all the bottom of the barrel people, it doesn't matter if you're black, white, Mexican, all the bottom of the barrel people go to these platforms. But there's also some very useful information on these platforms. You just have to dig through all the nonsense to get to it. And as I was explaining what I was just explaining, I was thinking about my YouTube page, and I and I've got a really big production here, right? Like, you wouldn't think, and I haven't been focusing on YouTube at all. Like, I don't even go to YouTube to watch my own stuff, but I'm trying to get better at it. And I was looking at my followers, the amount of followers that I have, and I always crack jokes internally about how few followers that I actually have. And I was just, it's not funny to you guys, because you guys obviously can't hear what's going on inside my head. But I'll just crack. I got like 137 followers or subscribers on YouTube, and I'm like, oh, you broke the internet with it, man. This, like, anyway. I told you it wasn't funny. It's just stuff that goes on in my head. All right. Asset-based lending. They want to know 3 areas. They want about you, the entity that you're using. They want to know about the property, and then there's a couple of one-off things. So let's imagine we're buying a property, and we know we got to assess the deal every time we start, right? We got to ask 4 questions, because the answers to those 4 questions are going to determine how we can move forward with the property, what type of investment it's going to be, what our risk tolerance is going to be, how we're going to be able to exit. So you answer those 4 questions. What does it cost? What does it cost to fix up? What's it going to be worth when we're done? How much income can it generate? And how much income can it generate? And once you answer those 4 questions, then you know how to proceed, and you can see whether this investment is actually in your buy box. So that's always number one. If you don't know how to assess a deal, don't even get into it, because there's a lot of people that say they know how to assess deals that will try to sell you something based on it being a good deal. And if you can't verify it, then it's really easy to get took. And we don't want to do that, right? I don't want to put you in that position. You guys in our real estate family, you guys already know how to assess a deal, but if there's ever any questions, bring it to me. Let me look at it first, get another set of eyes on it. And then if there's any knowledge gaps we need to fill, we can do it. All right. So let's talk about requirement number 1. They want to know about you. Okay. So a hard money lender is going to send you an email once you submit your deal to them. How do you submit a deal? Well, once you're in contract, right? Once you put an offer on a property and the offer gets accepted, you take that contract and you go to find your hard money lender. I know a bunch of them. If anybody needs lending, come to me. I'll get you squared away, and I'll look at your deal to make sure that it's going to pencil out, whether you're in our real estate family or not. If you need lending, come to me. I have some people for that. So they're going to look at you, and they're going to, once you submit that offer to them, right, or purchase agreement, same thing. Once it's fully executed, which means signed by all parties, you upload it to their website, you fill out their application, you're going to get an email. And the email is probably going to be titled processing at whatever the hard money lender's name is. Okay. And then later on that day or the following day, you'll get another email. The first email is just an acknowledgement of your submission. The next email is probably going to come from a person, and it's probably going to be titled from an email address that says processor at whatever hardmoneylenderName.com. Okay. And this is where they're going to tell you everything they need. And once you get them everything they need, they are going to fund the deal. They'll wire the funds into escrow, and those funds will be distributed per the purchase agreement. And that first thing is they want to know about you. So on that email that comes from a person, they are going to have some attachments. One of the attachments is probably a spreadsheet called Schedule of Real Estate. It's simple. It's just a spreadsheet, and they want to know your experience. They're going to want to know how many deals you've done. They want to know the addresses, when you closed, what you purchased it for, what you exited for, and you just fill out the spreadsheet. If you have zero experience, you don't fill it out. You just let them know that this is going to be your first deal. And there are lenders that will lend on your first deal. So the other thing they want to know is if you have any rentals. So it's not just what deals you've done, because the spreadsheet is called a schedule of real estate owned. So it's not just the deals that you've done, right? The flips. It could be, what do you own? So many lenders count experience if you own one. So let's say you own a rental somewhere. You didn't flip it, even if you didn't rehab it. They still consider that one deal. And they are typically only looking in like the last 2 or 3 years. Okay. So after you submitted all of your experience, schedule of real estate owned, then what's happening is that you go to number 2. Now they want to know about your entity. Now this is where people get in trouble, because you shouldn't be doing stuff in your personal name anyway. That's a much longer conversation. You need some protection, right? Anytime that I'm engaging in any business transaction, there has to be a level of protection. So I'll go to my CPA or tax attorney and say, hey, look, this is what I'm doing. I want to accomplish 3 things. I want to be in the best position from a tax wise, for liability, and I want to maintain anonymity. So I don't want anybody knowing what I have or what I'm doing. All right. So they're looking at the entity, how it's structured, and they're going to want your entity documents, which you should already have in a folder somewhere. So it should be really easy to just reply with them, right? They're going to want to know they're going to want your articles of incorporation. Sometimes they'll want your operating agreement, and some other things, right? But that's generally, what they want. They want a certificate of good standing, all right? They want to make sure your entity is not in bad standing with the state that it's in. If you're in most states, if your entity hasn't been around for a year, you're not going to have a certificate of good standing I think you get it after the first year. So you would just tell them that. But if it has, then you can go to your Secretary of State, look up your entity, and download a certificate of good standing. Those are things that they're going to want. Did I say that right? All right. So, and then the third thing is they're going to want to know about the property. Now, this is the most important part of the deal, because in knowing what you're going to do with the property, that's how they're going to see if the deal is going to pencil out or not. So they're going to send you another attachment, and it could be an Excel spreadsheet that's basically a budget. They're going to want to know what you're doing for the property. So what you're doing to the property. So they're going to want to see your scope of work. Now, I'm telling you right now, your scope of work can either make or break your project. It is one of the most important components of what you are doing. Now, Tavares, I'm going to school everybody on how to do a scope of work if you've never done one before. So don't let me forget, because that's very, very important. Scope of work.
I got you.
And I'm going to teach you how to do it. Even if you've never done a rehab project, I'm going to get into a scope of work, because you're going to have to do that regardless. So they're going to send you either a spreadsheet, or they're going to have it online where you can complete it on their website. And a scope of work is your budget. What are you going to do? So basically, the spreadsheet will say something like, you'll put something like, okay, replace kitchen cabinets, $4,000. Replace interior flooring, $9,000. Replace all exterior window, and you'll just go line item, line item, line item, line item. And then you're going to allocate a dollar amount to each line item. Okay. Now, once you submit that and that lender approves you, they're going to do what they call a construction holdback for your budget. So if your entire rehab budget is, let's say it's $50,000, right? Maybe it's not a huge rehab, $50,000. they're going to go ahead and fund the deal, fund the purchase, right? They'll fund a percentage of the purchase, but then they'll do a construction holdback, which means they're going to allow you to draw on those funds as you get towards the end of your project, right? So, let's say you've hired a contractor, you give the contractor a down payment. I typically do 10%, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the cost of the entire project. And every time they complete a benchmark, they send you an invoice. You submit that invoice to the lender, and they'll reimburse you for it or pay you out for it. Right. So you can pay the contractor and they'll reimburse you, or you can set it up to where they send you the funds and you pay the contractor out of those funds. And you do that all the way until the project is completed. So you have your original financing for the actual purchase itself. And then once you close on the deal, you're making a monthly mortgage payment, and your monthly mortgage payment changes every time you draw on that construction holdback because the amount increases, right? And then you do that all the way until you complete the project. And then when you exit out of the project with a cash out refinance or a sale, then you pay all that debt back. Okay. So they want to know about you and your experience. This is the lender. They want to know about your entity. They want to make sure you have all your entity paperwork where it needs to be. They want to make sure that it's registered in the state you're doing business in. I do business all over the country. So I can foreign register an LLC, or I can just create an LLC in that country. Sometimes they want to look at your operating agreement for the LLC, right? They articles of incorporation, certificate of good standing, all of these things you should already have. So that shouldn't be an issue. And then they want to know about the project itself, right? What's the address of the property, right? Like stuff like that. But they're really interested in how you're going to improve the property. So they're going to want to know what your scope of work is, your budget on the rehab. Now, once you have submitted that budget, if it changes, it's very hard to have them change it. I'll give you an example. We talked about I just mentioned flooring, right, as an example. So I was on one project where I had $9,000 budgeted for flooring, and then I had $4,000 budgeted for appliances. So a total of 13,000, right? So as we got into the flooring situation, the contractor didn't fix or address the floor joists, which are beams that are under the flooring, that if there's something wrong with them, it could be a little dip in the flooring. And they just ignored it.
Mm.
And what happened was it was another $4,000 basically to fix all the floor joists and do what I needed to do. Well, I only budgeted 9,000 for flooring. So I said, all right, now my flooring has me at what, 13,000. I said, that's fine. I'll just not do the appliances. So I was going to reallocate 4,000 from the appliances, bring it over to flooring. I called the lender, and this one particular lender was like, yeah, no, sorry, man. You budgeted for they stuck to it. They were like, no, we'll reimburse you 9,000 for flooring. And then that was it. So I had to come out of pocket for the other $4,000. Right now, they still covered the appliances, but if we're trying to move things around and reallocate funds, it's very, very hard, which is why it's very important to have your scope of work really dialed in. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. Okay. So again, recap. When you're dealing with a hard money lender, they're going to want to know about three areas: you and your experience, your LLC, make sure all your paperwork is together, and the property itself, what you're going to do to it, what's your budget, so on and so forth. Then they're going to want some one-off stuff, right? Who's the closing company that you're using? They're going to have to coordinate and communicate. I mean, that's where they're going to be sending the funds to. So they're going to want to know the closing attorney information, or if you're in a state that uses title and escrow, they're going to want to know the title company or escrow's information. They're going to ask you for your insurance, which you don't have yet, because why would you have insurance on a property you don't own yet, right? This is just qualifying to get funding to purchase the property, right? What that means is they're just telling you to go get it. Go get insurance, have the insurance binder sent to escrow. You can have a escrow will typically send it to the lender, or you can send it to the lender. Your lender will have some language that needs to go into the policy that you need to communicate. I just put everybody in contact with each other and say, you guys just work it out, right? Just copy me on everything. So that's basically it, right? If you have an agent, there may be some communication there, but that's basically it. but it's not as hard as it sounds because they tell you every single thing that they're going to need. All right. You can attach a preamble to the list of activities needed. Okay. I'm just looking at some comments. So Otis, I think that depends on the lender and the relationship, correct? Yes, it does depend on the lender. This is very important. When you're dealing with hard money and what was it? Carlisle Campbell. Thank you for that question. When you're dealing with hard money, the hard money lenders typically have investors, whereas conventional lenders will sell their loans back to Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. So Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac determines the guidelines, and all of the lenders have to abide by those guidelines. Hard money lenders are not the same. They all have their own rules. So the whole point is making sure that when you get that first email from a person, not the email acknowledging your submission or your application, when you get that first email, they're going to tell you all the rules. So you don't have to try to figure anything out, right? Now, for those folks that are in the lending space, I know which hard money lenders typically want what. So when somebody calls me, I'll ask them some questions and kind of figure out kind of where they are financially and credit wise. And then I'll already know the best lender to go to. But if you don't, that email is going to it's going to tell you everything that they need. Now, when you're going in blind or you're working with some of these lender or brokers that aren't really well versed in this space, you don't want them to run your credit over and over again just to find a lender that you can't use anyway, right? So make sure you're talking to somebody that's well versed in the process. Okay. Now, we talked about construction holdbacks, and we talk about the financing and all of the areas that they're going to be concerned about. So that's when you're dealing with a hard money lender. Now, we can also do seller financing. Seller financing is I don't think I want to. Before we get into seller financing, let me talk about the scope of work, because the scope of work is what makes or breaks people, right? The scope of work is understanding what you're going to do to the property. Before I jump into the scope of work, is there anybody that has any questions on Clubhouse? Is there any questions? Tavares,
No questions right now. Oh, no questions.
Okay. All right. Let me see. Instagram. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. I already answered that. All right. So let's talk about your first project, and let's talk about your first scope of work. Hold on one second. Let me check something real quick. Okay. All right. Oh, all right. What's up, Nicole? Nicole on Facebook. That's my sister. D'Amica, what's going on? I'm also in Clubhouse. Didn't know you were on YouTube until today. All right. That's what's up. All right. So let's talk about the scope of work. When you're talking about the scope of work, we do it in 3 phases, right? And I'm going to explain it to you guys how I teach it. So the scope of work is a list of everything that you're going to do. We already established that, but you're not a contractor, right? And I don't expect you to be a contractor. I'm not going to teach you to be a contractor. We manage contractors. Okay. So a scope of work, we put into 3 phases. Phase 1, observation. Phase 2, format it, put it in a media or a way so you can hand it to somebody. And phase 3 is bid it out. Okay. So let's talk about phase 1. You don't have to know how much everything costs. All you have to do is know what you want to fix. So what I do the same thing for a rehab that I do when I'm turning one of the units that I own. A tenant moves out and I got another tenant moving in. Now, I have to do it this way because I invest all over the country, and code requirements are different all over the country. Labor costs are different all over the country. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. I got to spend $30 an hour for somebody to swing a hammer out here. I can go to Alabama and spend $12 an hour or whatever it is to have somebody swing a hammer. So it's going to be different. So, right. So it's best to go in blind and start from scratch everywhere you go. So you're not going to miss anything. Now, let's do okay, so let's say you go to the property, you're not a contractor, you don't know how much everything costs to fix, but you know what you want to fix. So just take a piece of paper, go in and make all the observations you can. Front stucco needs to be patched. I want to replace the entry door. I want to replace the exterior windows. I want to replace, okay, roof needs replaced. Okay, landscaping probably needs some adjustments, some curb appeal stuff, and just write down item for item for item and go through every room and write item per item per item. For example, I go in a master bedroom and I say, all right, and I take pictures, by the way, and I classify the pictures based on where I'm taking them at, which room, what bedroom, what kitchen, what living space, whatever. and I'll say, okay, flooring needs to be replaced. Okay, interior needs a full paint. Outlets need to be replaced. The entry door to the room needs to be replaced. The ceiling fan needs to be replaced. I may want to do some recessed lighting in here. I'm putting no numbers down. Okay, and I do that all throughout the house. Then I come back to my office, and mind you, I'm taking pictures as I'm doing this. I come back to my office, or I'm typically, I'll fly back because I invest all over the country. I'm probably 2,500 miles away. I fly back and I say, all right, I got all this information. I know everything that I want to do, and I want to put it in a format where I can just hand it to somebody because I know I'm going to bid it out to contractors. This is important. Do not just invite a contractor over, have them look around the property and quote you a price. All of your pricing should be quoted based on your scope of work, period, right? Based on your scope of work, not based on what the contractor sees. Now, let's do this. Who do I got on stage? Let's say, okay, let me look down. All right. Somebody on stage, come off your mic. I'm gonna ask you a question. Anybody, just come off your mic. Who's available? Okay, Tavares, you're
What's up?
all right. So Tavares, if I said, let's say a master bathroom, okay.
Mhm.
So I'm a contractor. Okay. You're gonna rehab your master bathroom. Okay.
Mhm.
Tell me what you're gonna do.
I'm gonna put in a new his and her vanity.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead and put in a new shower pan. So I'm gonna do some new backsplash in the shower with a new shower pan.
Nice.
Gonna,
Tiling in the shower. Okay.
Yeah, gonna add some, some spa elements, maybe like another shower head. And then of course in the bathroom, we're gonna go ahead and do a new toilet. Okay. And then inside of there, I want to expand the actual bathroom itself by about
nice.
Yeah,
nice.
man, it's gonna be real nice.
Yeah.
And we're gonna stick with some warm lighting, probably some recessed lighting that you mentioned. And then of course, we're gonna go ahead and what's we put in there? Maybe put a one of those like beauty bars from my wife up in there. So little custom design, I gotta make sure it's good. But
cool.
yeah,
that's a nice bathroom.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a nice bath. And it's always interesting how contractors be getting excited when
Right?
you're telling them what you want to do. Look, folks, I had to learn the hard way. This is one of the things I learned years ago. Just one of these tips for you guys. Anytime you're doing a shower that has a glass enclosure and glass meets glass in any corner, you might as well add about $2,000 onto your audio project, right? I had the hookup too. Like I only budgeted $7,000 for this bathroom, and it ended up being $17,000 by the time I was done with it. So, all right. So everybody heard what Tavares said. He communicated what he wanted done to the bathroom. Right. So he had about 5, 6, maybe even 7 things that were, that you could write down and give to a contractor. Now, and I'm doing this, and thanks to Tavares, but I'm doing this as a learning situation here. So now this is what I'm going to do. Let me see if I can move tab to a new window. Okay. So let's do it this way. All right. Now let me get back here and all right. So everybody heard what Tavares said. He had a bunch of things that he wanted done there. I think he named like 5, 6, 7, maybe 8. Thought it was very nice that he included some of the stuff for his wife. Right? We always got to do that. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to take. Well, we can use ChatGPT. We can use Gemini, any AI, right? And before I do this, you guys in our real estate family, you've already seen this. But before I do this, you guys need to understand AI, whether it's ChatGPT, Gemini, or any of those other ones, they're not meant for you to lean on their understanding. They are only meant to help support what you already know. Okay. So don't go to ChatGPT or Gemini and if you're not well versed in whatever you're putting in there, and then just taking what it spits out as gospel. Okay. And I'll give you an example of that in a second. So I'm going to go in and I'm just going to type this mic is really in my mouth, right? No diddy. All right, so I'm going to write I'm a real estate investor rehabbing a bathroom. I'll put master bathroom, a master bathroom. I'll say, please give me a full and detailed scope of work, including materials. Okay. So I'm gonna click submit, and I'm gonna read what it puts out, and we're gonna see if there's anything that Tavares left out. Now, before I do this, this is no reflection on Tavares, because I do this even with me to make sure there's nothing that I left out, and I'm seasoned in doing this. But I want to make sure that maybe there's something I'm just not thinking of. But more importantly, there may be something that I'm leaving to the contractor as far as common sense goes. But look, if it ain't in writing, I'm going to have to pay for it, right? Like, for example, if I say I want a new vanity in there, common sense says you got to remove the old one, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's just common sense. But if I don't put demo or prep work in here, then I could get charged for that. So I could come up to the project and find a big pile of stuff in the garage, and and I can say, "Hey, what's this?" And he can say, "Well, oh, you didn't, you want us to take the stuff and haul it away? I didn't charge you for that." Now you got, an additional line item. So let's see if there's anything that Tavares missed. And by the way, every time I do this, everybody misses stuff, right? I've done this with seasoned real estate investors that miss stuff because we're so used to doing it. It just, some of the stuff we think is just like, okay, what's common sense, of course. So first thing, demolition and preparation. Task: remove all existing fixtures, toilet, vanity, mirror, shower tub, and lighting. Remove existing flooring and baseboards. Demo old shower tile and waterproofing system down to the studs. Inspect plumbing and electrical upgrades for repairs. Notice it says inspect plumbing and electrical for upgrades and repairs. So that means if and I put all this into my contract. If my contractor comes in and halfway through the job he says, "Oh man, you know what? We're halfway between the plumbing and we just realized, man, we got to reroute it over here." Or, okay, I'm going to ask, well, did you inspect it first? You knew the sheetrock was coming down, so why didn't you just? You had to take off the sheetrock, so that means you didn't inspect it. So I'm not paying for that change order. But let's keep it going. Haul away debris. Next section: materials and tools needed. Safety gear, gloves, goggles, dust masks. Now, contractor already knows that. He probably already has that stuff, right? So I don't have to write that in, but it's better to have the information and not need it than need it not have it, right? Crowbar, hammer, utility knife, reciprocating saw, trash bags, dumpster for debris and disposal. Okay? That's just under demolition and preparation. Plumbing upgrades: replace old plumbing pipes if necessary, especially if they are galvanized or outdated. That's something worth noting in your contract. Okay. Install new plumbing lines for fixtures like a double vanity or a rain shower head. Add or relocate niche in the shower for toiletries. Materials: then it gives me a list of materials. Electrical updates: add wiring for additional lighting, such as recessed lights or vanity sconces. Upgrade outlets to GFCI for safety. Install an exhaust fan or upgrade the existing one for better ventilation. So, and it gives me the materials for that. Then it goes into the task for framing and drywall. It gives me the materials for that. Then it goes into waterproofing. It gives me tasks and materials for that. Then tiling. Then fixture installation. Then painting and finishing touches. Then final walkthrough and cleaning. And it gives me an estimated timeline. So I'm not going to read the whole entire thing. But Tavares gave us, and typically when I ask somebody that question, they'll give me 7 or 8 things. This scope of work just for the bathroom is over a page and a half long, right? So if you don't know what you're doing, remember your scope of work is 3 phases: observations, format, right? Put it in a format where you can hand it to somebody and then bid it out. If you put all your observations, or you just go into ChatGPT or Gemini and ask it to do a full scope of work, it's going to be overkill. It's going to be overkill 100% of the time. So you're still going to have to go in and rule out the things that you don't need. But the other benefits to that are it's going to share things that you may not have known to include. All right. Things that you just thought were common sense. So I do that. And then what I'll do is I'll do that for every room, and then I'll review it. Reviewing it is very, very important. All right. And then once I scale it down, then I'll go ahead and take that scope of work. I'll have a finished scope of work, and then I'll add it as Exhibit A in my actual contractor agreement. Okay. So that is very, very important. And again, when people lose money on these projects, the scope of work is one of the controllables, right? We control the controllables, And, because there's things that are going to be beyond our control. For example, if you're in the middle of a project, a 6-7 month project, maybe it's a big project, and then interest rates go up 3 times while you're in your project. Okay, well, you're not going to be able to exit based on the projections that you initially had, right? That's beyond your control. The scope of work is within your control, right? So, if anybody wants to know how to do any of this stuff, go ahead and join our real estate family. You can go to 4datapoints.com and I will hold your hand through the process. And we give unlimited support. So we give you support for as long as you need it because we understand that real estate investing, it's not something that you can just learn in 6 weeks. The practical application and the support is where you get most of the education. So we go over about 7-8 weeks of fundamentals. Then I get you out there and, I hold your hand through the process. All right. Always create a space for you to come back, get, support and knowledge and all of those things to make you a successful real estate investor. And it doesn't cost that much, folks. Doesn't cost that much at all, especially relative to what you can lose. All right. Is there any questions about the scope of work or the rehab project or hard money lending?
We have one question in the in the chat from Jeffrey. He says, I bought one, but loan is not coming through. What now?
Wait a minute. Is it wait, Jeffrey, is that our Jeffrey Broussard?
No.
Oh, okay.
This is Jeffrey YWIE.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, Jeffrey, you could just call my cell phone. All right. So, okay, I'm sorry. Repeat the question in. So he bought it, but
he says, I bought one, but loan is not coming through. What now?
So, Jeffrey, that's a good question. Is he still in the room?
He is. Jeffrey, come on up.
Come on up on stage, Jeffrey, because I want to be able to make sure I give you some good information. And because there's a few levels to what it is that you need, and I'm gonna save you some money. So if you could come up.
I don't see him anymore.
Okay. So
yeah, I didn't hear no more.
So Jeffrey says that he bought one and now the financing is not coming through. So it sounds like he paid cash for a deal, and the financing isn't coming through on the rehab, I guess. I don't know. Okay. So let me frame it this way. So let's say he paid all cash for a $50,000 property. And let's say it needs $40,000 in rehab work, and then he's going to sell it. Now, if Jeffrey ran the 4 data points, then he knows that the purchase price is $50,000, obviously. The rehab is $40,000. So I don't know how well versed he is in estimating a rehab, but let's say it's $40,000. And then data point number 3, what's it going to be worth when we're done? Hopefully it's going to be worth enough so that if you bring in a refinance, well, he said the refinance isn't coming through. So let's take that off the table. And let's also assume, let's not assume this for him, but this same solution applies for when you don't have the credit to refinance. So what I'm going to do, and let's assume he's going to sell it. Let's assume this is just going to be a typical flip. So he had the cash to buy it, didn't have the cash to rehab it. Okay. So now what I would do is I would leverage my network. And this is why reputation is so important, right? I can pick up the phone right now and say, hey, I got a deal here. If people have the money that know me, they'll just wire it in, no questions asked. They don't even need no paperwork, right? I've had over probably $500 million sent to me, no paperwork, just hand. I usually have to tell them, no, this is how you would do it. Don't just send money to some. I've had to tell people not to send me money, right? So reputation is very, very important. I say all that just to say that a little bit. So he bought it for $50,000, doesn't have any money to where he can refinance or borrow the rehab funds or anything like that. So I would leverage my network and I would offer people a return. I would say, hey, look, mom or aunt with the 401k or uncle with the self-directed IRA or anybody that has cash. $40,000 is not a lot of money to raise, right? That's a very, very small amount of money. But I would also structure that in a way that protects those people. Stop borrowing money if you don't not know how to protect the people you're borrowing it from. All right, especially if they're not seasoned investors. So what I would do is say, let's say I'm borrowing $10,000 from 4 people, okay? And I already own the project. So I'm not bringing them into the project as, limited partners or any of that. I own the project outright. But I do want to give them a return because they are going to be lending me money. And I don't want them to just have to trust me because if things go bad, and they don't have any recourse, I want to make sure everybody's safe. Okay. So I'm borrowing $10,000 a piece from 4 different people to make up the $40,000 I need to fix the property up. What I would do is I would draft a promissory note to all 4 of the folks, and I would outline the terms that I'm going to pay them back. Okay. Interest rate, how long do I have to pay them back? Is there a balloon payment? Is there a prepayment penalty? What happens if I'm late? All of those things that are on a typical promissory note. And then in order to give it teeth, I would have the closing company record a security instrument for each of those notes. Okay. Now there's a couple different ways that I could do that. It's a lot of paperwork, 4 notes, 4 security instruments. You could also form an LLC with those 4 people. Now, before I get into this, folks, anytime you hear me mention anything, LLC, C Corps, tax, laws, outside of actual real estate, vet what I'm telling you with a qualified professional. Rules can change, and just because something works for me in my situation does not mean it'll work for everybody. All right.
Hey, Mr. James, we have a question real quick.
Okay, hold on. Let me finish this one point.
Do you think?
So I could have the paperwork for each individual person, or I can create an entity with all 4 people and have the paperwork just for that entity. And then in the operating agreement of the entity, I can determine how people are paid out and all that other stuff. Okay. But the point is, I need evidence of the debt, right? From the people that I'm borrowing from. I need evidence of the debt. And then I need a way for them to get paid, even if I, get hit by a bus tomorrow. So we'll do a promissory note. We'll do a security instrument. When you record a security instrument, it attaches that debt to the property in the form of a lien, right? So if something happens to me, if I don't honor that, they can foreclose on the property and get their money back, right? Foreclose on it, sell it, and get their money back. And because I paid all cash, $50,000, that $40,000 would get paid out first, right? It would get paid out first because it would be in first lien position if I grouped them all as one, or if I did separate paperwork for each of the 4. The first person that recorded would be lien position 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Right? But I leverage my network and my integrity, right, to borrow the funds from private individuals to do the rehab. Now, once the rehab is done, I'm all in 50,000. That's what I bought it for. I got 40,000 that I borrowed, plus any interest and fees, right, that we agreed on. Then I just sell the property and pay everybody back out of that, and then I keep the change, right? Which is also important, again, to run the 4 data points, because data point number 3 is, what's it going to be worth when you're done? Don't borrow from people if you don't know what your profit is going to be. I see people do that, and it's very, very irresponsible, and it lacks integrity, and it's not, anyway, I'm not going to get into that. So that's what I would do in his case, right? I would leverage my relationships, but I would first get an understanding of the documentation to be able to protect people. Now, look, things don't always work out the way you want, right? I have investments where other people invested, and I wasn't able to sell the property for as much as I wanted to. So what I do, I had to sell it for less, but I made sure they all got paid first, and I took the loss. Right? I didn't just structure it like a typical real estate deal. Like, hey, this is it. This is what it is. I know we invested this much. Project took a loss, so it wasn't like that, right? Because my reputation is more valuable than any money that I would have made from a particular property, right? So if you're going to get into that stuff and you're not well versed, don't be borrowing from people. It's too high risk, all right? And I see too many people doing that. So Tavares, what was the other question?
Well said, my man. From Maurice Gibson. What up, Maurice? What kind of returns do you offer, Otis?
Oh, shoot. Hold on 1 second. Let me get back to I just left the room. Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
I just left the room. I was like, I pushed the wrong button. I don't know. It depends. Depends on the deal. Depends on how it's structured too. If we go in on a project together, then we share in the gains and we share in the losses. If it's just lending on a project, I'll typically do a minimum 8%, but simple interest. Not 8% interest rate. I'll do 8%. Sometimes I'll do 12%. But annualized. But that's typically a 3-month exit. 3 months, maybe 4 months. So if you were to annualize that, over a year, as far as the interest rate, it'd be a lot more. But I typically give more than you would get in any other investment vehicle that you could invest it in, right? So I got to make it worthwhile for the people, right? So it depends on how I structured it. If we go in together, that's one way. If I position you as a lender, that's another way. So, but I use that for marketing too. Like when people give me money and they get paid back good returns, they go speak good about me behind my back. And for someone like myself, who is ultimately going to be putting a fund together, my reputation is everything. So I've got look, I had people lend on a project and I ended up not needing the money, right? And I still gave them a return. I didn't even use it. I still gave them a return. And it was only like 12 days. So they sent the money and then 12 days later they got a return. I think it was like 12%. And some of those returns were like somebody sent me 20,000, I sent them 22,000 back in 12 days. Didn't even use it. Right? I was just using it as a contingency, but we were able to actually work it out and I didn't need it. So,
Nice.
so it's just, you gotta do good business, man, and do it to the best of your ability because one day there could be something that doesn't work out and it's beyond your control. And with all these scammers and everybody out here, dude, it's anyway. And plus it
Hey,
helps you sleep at night too. Go ahead.
Maurice has a follow-up question. Good feedback, Otis. Can a combination approach work? Thanks for the question, Maurice.
Yeah, absolutely. The more complicated you get it, so let me illustrate that. So let's say you're, and I use this example. This week we were talking about creative finance in our real estate family. So I use the example. Let's say that you have you're buying a house for $100,000, and your hard money lender is only going to finance 80% of it. You got to come up with 20%, but you don't have it. Well, what do? So this is where the real estate investor comes in. We're going to use a combination. So you can go back to the seller and say, hey, look, now keep in mind, anytime you structure a deal creatively, you got to be able to offer the seller some incentive, right? Otherwise, why would they work with you? You can't offer an incentive if you don't know how much profit you're going to make. So let's say in this case, you're buying a property for 100 grand. Let's say there's a $20,000 rehab, but it's in a neighborhood where properties in good condition are selling for 200. So a lender's only going to give you a percentage of what you're buying it for. They don't care what it's worth or what it's going to be worth when you're done, right? In many cases, right? So in one of those cases, you got to come up with a down payment of 20,000. And in this instance, let's say we don't have it. So I go to the seller and say, hey, look, instead of me buying the property for 100,000, now I wouldn't articulate it this way. I'd articulate it differently, but just because I'm teaching it right now, I'll say it this way. Instead of me buying the property for 100 grand, let me buy it for 105,000 because I need some help. I would never say help, by the way. Just say, I need to get creative. I got other projects. I need to bring in funds from elsewhere. But in order to make things, to speed it up, let's do it this way.
Hey, I have a quick question.
Go ahead.
Are we going to write the debt? Are we going to write it as a debt on the property?
Well, hold on. Hold that question 1 second. I'm gonna come back to that. So you don't have a $20,000 down payment. So I'm gonna go to the seller and say, hey, look, can you gift 20% equity to me? Just gift it to me, right? To satisfy the lender. Now, why would somebody just gift 20% equity to me? They wouldn't, right? But I'll say, hey, look, go ahead and gift 20% equity to me so I can satisfy this lender. But before you do that, the amount of that 20%, whatever it is, the $20,000 in this case, I want to execute a note that's the evidence of the debt. So you're going to gift it to me, but I'm going to give it back to you. That is evidence of a debt. We're going to execute a note and a security instrument. That security instrument is going to attach the debt to the property. So if I run off to Mexico, if I don't honor it, you can take it back. So, and this is the most important part. But in this case, we're not going to record it. Okay. But I'm going to give it to you fully executed, fully signed. So I'm going to give to you a note for 20,000 and a security instrument that you can have recorded anytime you want, but don't record it yet because I don't want it to interfere with my financing. So on the lender side, the seller's going to gift me 20% equity. Lender says, okay, he's going to gift you 20% equity. We'll finance the 80%. And now you can close. I already know the property is going to be worth 200,000. Now, after we close, if the seller wants to, he can record that debt. He didn't have to, but he can record it. It would be smart to record it so that when I exit out of the property and the proceeds from my exit come in, the closing company can see his debt and pay him out. So they'll record it after the fact. So that's a combination of seller financing and using hard money. But I still got to exit. So now the property is going to be worth $200,000, and at that point I could borrow the funds to do the rehab, or I can pay for the rehab out of the cash out refinance. There's a bunch of mortgage products. You can do it either way, right? I can borrow it from a consumer lending site like Lending Club or Best Egg and have it not even tied to the real estate, but I'm still going to pay that back out of my exit. Now, I can go to that same lender that was only going to cover 80% of the purchase. Once it's all said and done, I can go ahead and have them do 80% of the value. Well, the value is 200,000 now. 80% of 200,000 is 160,000. I got a mortgage for 160,000, cash out refinance. Well, guess what? I'm paying off the hard money lender, right? I'm paying off the seller that 20%, and then any incentive or compensation that I added on so that the seller would work with me, I pay that also, right? So there it is. That's a combination of using seller finance and hard money. All right. All right, Tavares, so was another question you said?
Oh no, you good. You answered it actually. You good?
Yeah. So you can do all types of combinations, I guess. But just keep in mind, just because something is possible does not mean it's likely. So when you're talking about seller financing and structuring deals creatively, if you don't know how to assess a deal, you're dead in the water. Because if you don't know how to assess a deal, you don't know what your profit margins are going to be, and you don't know how much money you have to work with to be able to incentivize people to work with you. All right. So that's just giving you guys a little tidbit. All right, let me do one more thing here. Okay, so Instagram cut me off because we can only do an hour there. We're still on YouTube and Facebook. I'll answer any more questions. We're gonna keep it going. I got about 10-15 minutes left, but the takeaway when you're talking about using other people's money is, one, if it's not an institutional lender, because they're going to protect themselves, right? If you're borrowing money from investors, private investors, like people with 401ks or self-directed IRAs, or maybe they got a stock portfolio they can leverage against, or they have an insurance policy they can leverage. You've got to be able to protect those people, because, and if you can't protect them, now you can't protect people from everything, right? Once you get into the commercial space, and those are for more savvier people. People should know how those investments go. And if it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out, you should have the deal tied to an actual asset where you can go look at the financials and see, okay, well, this is why it didn't work out. And you guys can collectively come up with a plan to make it profitable. Maybe instead of a short-term situation, it turns into a long-term. So, but the private investors, especially for 1 to 4 units, single family duplex, triplex, and fourplexes, because they're financed the same way, you got to be able to protect people, right? I've got people that are in our real estate family of a certain age, right? I've had people that have gone in on projects with me that are of a certain age. They don't have the risk tolerance like somebody in their 20s or 30s. Some of these folks are using their retirement. So, you've got to be able to protect that. I'm telling you, if you are even a halfway decent person and you mess that up, and you mess up somebody's retirement income, you will not be able to sleep at night. You will not. Right? It's tough, man. It's tough. Like I can only speak for me personally. Like if things aren't, shoot, boy, it will stress you out. So I do everything in my power to make sure that the residential stuff is easy. 1 to 4 units, I mean, that stuff is easy. But the bigger stuff, which I'm not necessarily, I'm going to put the brakes on right after I finish the projects that I have going right now. The bigger stuff is tough, man, especially if it doesn't work out, because people are always going to look for someone to blame. And if you can't explain exactly why, and you can't point to the data points that say, hey, no, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, then that's why I don't understand how these scammers, like, I would think you could only scam people one time, and then you got to like disappear from everything, right? Like how are these people scamming people over and over and over? People talk, man. People talk. And, fortunately for me, people talk, good about me, but they will drag you through the mud, especially your competition. If,
Hmm.
if you're in a space where it's competitive, you know how many people are looking to just drag Otis through the mud? They just
Yep.
can't. They can't. They're just waiting for an opportunity to say, you know what? He's not who you guys thought he was because I'm taking food off their table. And, for somebody like me, our program doesn't have an end date. So if you got to choose between our program or doing something similar for 5 times as much that has an end date, who are you going to choose? Right. And we don't market. All of the stuff we've done is like word of mouth. So there's people out there that are like, man, I can't wait till this dude slips up.
Hey, do you have any input on where people during their real estate investing journey should or could source their materials?
Source materials? No.
I mean, just any input, like where they should go. Should they rely on their GC? Should they YouTube? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it really depends on what the materials are and whether it's worth the cost of you managing that aspect of the rehab. So, I'll choose my own materials and, I'll have a pro account at Home Depot or the equivalent type of account at Lowe's or whatever. And if I am buying my own materials, then I'll typically choose them. Right. If the contractor is choosing the materials, then all of that should be outlined in our contractor agreement. And I need to see what materials that he's choosing. So I'll typically send our contractor to Home Depot, and I already got, my credit cards on file and all that. So they'll call me from the register and I'll have to approve the purchase. And once I approve the purchase, they'll send me an email with an itemized list of everything that was purchased. Now, if he's purchasing drills and tools and stuff like that, then that's fine. I'm going to take that out of the next payment, right? Or the final payment. So when you guys are doing these deals with contractors and all this great stuff, make sure that your payment schedule is set up in a way that protects you from things like that. Right? Payment schedule is just like it sounds. In my contracts, I schedule each payment based on certain events, and then I'll pay after the fact, after that event has been completed. And I'll leave enough at the end so if there's any, funny business, I can take it out of that final payment. Amen. Richard, what's going on, man? I saw Richard come up on stage on the Clubhouse side. I want to make sure I'm not missing any questions. Richard, you still there? Come off mic and there you are.
I'm here, my friend. No, that's very smart with that payment schedule because contractors inadvertently or on purpose could buy tools and things that benefit them and are not necessary for the job, or maybe they are. So
yeah,
correct.
It's smart to watch those items.
Yeah, and my contractors, the ones that I work with on a regular basis, they'll call me, and like I had a contractor call me and says, "Hey, man, I need I need a new paint gun. Mine went out. Is it cool if you if I get it, and then you just I can take it out of the last payment, and then I'll look at the margin, right, and I'll see like, okay, where are we financially with this project? And 9 times out of 10, I'll just say, yeah, no, just get it. I'll take care of it. Just, you don't have to pay. I won't take it out of the payment, especially if I have a good relationship with that contractor and they're going above and beyond. I'm like, go ahead, man. I got it. It's all good. And I'll just, it's just chalk it up to the cost of the project and I'll expense it. So
Terry Walker has a great comment in the chat. She says, "What's up, Terry?" She says, "Make sure you have ownership of extra or leftover materials. Some contractors overpurchase on purpose and use it on their next project." Really great comment. Thanks, Terry.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you should be managing your materials anyway. And what I'll do is I'll have, especially if I'm working with a new vendor, I'll have them go in and take measurements. And then I'll know how much materials need to be ordered based on those measurements.
That's right.
And then what I'll do is any materials that are not used, I'll have them leave in the garage. And if I'm investing in that area, I'm not going to store them for the most part. I'm not going to store them. But if I have another project, I'll go ahead and take them to another project or have somebody pick them up and make sure those materials are managed. I got a duplex out in, Missouri, and we're getting all the materials for one side, and I can store those in the basement. And then when we do the other side, I can just use those materials. But you should be managing all of those things, and how you manage them should be outlined in your contract.
Hey,
go
to
ahead.
Terry's point, I actually, when we first moved into our home, we were doing some renovations. We redid the linen closet area. And our GC, Roberto, shout out Roberto, he actually came over with a 5x5 extra piece of white quartz countertop and used it here for us for our linen closet. So, to Terry's,
somebody misses some materials.
Someone misses some materials. So, to her point, and to Richard's point as well, this does happen. That's why I asked the question in property management for myself as a property manager of multiple properties at one time in Los Angeles. That was a regular occurrence. And if anyone knows about Los Angeles and the market out there, they're definitely about getting theirs and getting over. So that's why I posed the question. Thanks, O, for breaking it down. Thanks, Richard. And thank you, Terry, for a great comment and question.
Yeah, man, that's that's a very common thing. And, again, people that are not well versed in that, that's something that, they can run into. They got to protect themselves from that. So you definitely have to, folks. How much time I got? You know what I'm gonna do? Let me do this.
What you doing?
Let me do this. I'm going to let me see. I'm gonna give you guys another lesson real quick. We have a let me see. I'm trying to see, is this gonna work? Okay, there it is.
It's important to watch your budget and watch your money out here while you're doing these flips or these long holds. Very important.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier about so I just went back on Instagram. I mentioned earlier about managing to rehab your project, because that's where people lose most of the money. So there's 10 pieces of paper that you need to have on a project when you're dealing with contractors to make sure that you are going to be protected. Now, look, I've had some contractors. You can vet contractors and they can look like angels on paper. There is no guarantee that they are going to be angels when the project starts. So this is how we protect ourselves. Number one, your contractor agreement. You can only hold the contractor accountable to what's on that piece of paper. Okay. Number two, your scope of work. Your scope of work is going to be the foundation of the entire project. You want to make it as detailed as possible. Attach that scope of work to the contract. Number three, and this is eForms has a really good contractor agreement because it has number three, which is a payment schedule as a part of the contract. So number three is a payment schedule. Number four, insurance. You want to make sure they have general liability insurance and workers' comp, right? Number five, W-9. You got to get their W-9, because unless you want to pay the taxes on what you pay them, right? So get your W-9 and make sure you have it before you issue any payments. And number six is a lien release. A lien release a lien release, once you pay the contractor and they provided the service and everybody's happy, everybody takes their ball and goes home, the lien release prevents the contractor from putting what we call a mechanic's lien on the property for non-payment. So I'll go ahead and get a lien release, and I'll get a lien release from any subcontractors, because guess what? If you pay the general contractor and he doesn't pay his subcontractors, who do you think they're coming after? They're coming after you. Now, you may be able to fight it out in court, but financially, it's just not worth it. So I get a lien release from anybody that's going to be doing any major work on the property. So in the rehab process, 6 documents: contractor agreement, scope of work, payment schedule, insurance, W-9, and lien release. All right. So when I'm working with folks that are in our real estate family, and James works with a lot of folks directly, in our real estate family too, because he looks at a lot of these projects for folks. We make sure that they have those things, in alignment for the most part. Now,
Hey,
go ahead.
So if anyone owes child support, this is a fun fact. I'm just gonna let y'all know this right now.
Yeah.
I went through this, but I situated my situation. If anyone owes money on child support and you go to purchase a home, there's a good chance that they put a lien on you in each county that you've ever lived in. So I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah. So yes, if you buy a home for yourself and you go through conventional lending,
Correct.
there are ways around that in some cases. If you're doing it in your LLC's name,
Correct. Yeah.
so there are ways around that, but I can't verify those ways because I haven't had to do that. So I'm speculating, and
My experience was, well, when I paid everything off, I received 3 pieces of paperwork, 3 releases, actually, 3 lien releases from Stanislaus County, Santa Clara County, and I think some other county. But yeah, I received 3 lien releases. I had no idea. So had I bought a home prior to paying it off in my name, they would have liened it off the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as an investor, we're not buying anything in our name. So you may be able to alleviate. Hold on. I think somebody's trying to get in here. You may be able to alleviate that or circumvent it in some way, shape, or form.
Correct.
But it is what it is. It is what it is. Folks, we're about to wrap up. I hear my 3-year-old out there. He's about to go ham. She's trying to knock on the door, like, what you doing in there? It sounds like you're having a good time in there. So we're about to wrap it up. You guys that just came in on Instagram, we've been going for about an hour and just over an hour, and Instagram cut me off. I just added it back on. Folks, we're going to be in Houston February 22nd. If you want to be a real estate investor, go there. I'll teach you how to invest in real estate. If you don't, then don't go there. Maybe you're just kind of, interested in the idea of being a real estate investor. Go to our website, 4datapoints.com, the number 4, DATAPOINTS. Download the free guide and practice. Pick an address and practice running the 4 data points. But we'll be in Houston. I'll be there on the 21st. We're going to do a meet and greet Friday the 21st at the Hyatt Regency. Right next door, we're going to have classes, the workshop at Hyatt Place. And then that evening, we're back at the Hyatt Regency. They're like right next door. I think they share a garage. And come on over since you're going to barge in. Come on, say hi to YouTube. All right. I don't like people putting their kids on the internet. All right. So we're going to have, so after the workshop, we're going to have everybody up to my suite, the people that have those tickets. I'm going to cater it for you guys. And, we're going to have an open bar up there. And we'll hang out, talk some real estate. I may have something on Sunday that I schedule, but I'm not necessarily 100% sure. So don't count on that. So you can buy tickets at 4datapoints.com. That's our website, and we'll go from there. We're capping it at probably 30 people because I got to be able to interact and make sure folks are actually learning something and not just, this is not one of those workshops where you just go to and they just spend a bunch of time talking about the lifestyle that you can have if you buy this $50,000. It's not that. So even if you're not in a position financially to join mentorship, I do these workshops to make sure you get value. So pretty proud of it. That being said, okay, all right, daddy duty. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. Time is the most valuable thing you have. I hope I was able to honor it by teaching you something that you didn't know. That being said, we are out.